Good morning, Australia. Good evening, America, and welcome to everyone listening across the world today. For those of you listening live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, we have the wonderful Payo in the Philippines ready to answer your questions, reply to your comments, and send you the links for anything that we talk about in the show today. A reminder, if you miss any of our shows, please catch up on Binge Network TV's USA, on Hero Go TV USA, and on the Toni TV channel app, which is available on all Roku, LG, and Samsung smart TVs across the world. Now, I am trialing my new Rode microphone since the other one kept messing up last week, and I've got a new one, so I hope that you can hear my voice crystal clear. This is Radio Toni, a conversation with Kez, our co-hosted show that's all about authors and their amazing books and stories. As you know, Kez joins me every week, and she is an international best-selling author and book coach, and her passion is to inspire and nurture others to tell their stories. And today we have a particularly special guest in Julie Randall, who I'll welcome to the show in a moment. But I'm actually going to hand the show over to Kez for most of the show today. I will still be here and come back and join at the end, but I'm going to let Kez do all the talking. But before I do that, here's what you need to know about the beautiful Julie Randall. This Australian best-selling author tells a true story of how she was a happy, healthy wife and mother to two teenage daughters living in the picturesque beaches of Sydney when in June 2012, and Julie thought her life was perfect. She just celebrated her 50th birthday and her idyllic existence took a shocking and devastating turn. She was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic advanced melanoma, handed a brochure on palliative care, and told to get her affairs in order because she'd only months to live. Julie refused to crawl into bed and refused to surrender to her presumed fate. She'd watched her mother suffer a similar ordeal, and she wasn't about to leave her beloved husband or her teenage daughters that needed her. She made a promise to them that she would fix it and that she would not die. In searching for answers, Julie came across an experimental drug trial taking place in the United States that showed lots of promise for her particular cancer diagnosis. But the trial was full of patients, 70 patients indeed, and for US citizens only. Through relentless appeals and sheer determination, Julie became patient 71. Gambling against all the odds, she left her family in Australia to join the trial in Portland, Oregon, not knowing if she would be able to return to Sydney. Patient 71 is a story of a woman's strength and courage, her triumph over fatal diagnosis, and the underlying support of her husband and her daughters and the numerous extended family members. Readers cannot help but be drawn into the life of this beautiful family and laugh and cry along with them. Julie and her family teach us how not only to survive life's challenges, but to live with joy and laughter through them. Julie's incredible story has become a source of hope and strength to many individuals faced with life-threatening illness. And for the past 8 years, Julie has made it her life's purpose to mentor other cancer patients. She's an international motivational speaker and has spoken at conferences and cancer fundraising events around the world. Today, Julie continues to spend most of her time in Sydney and is thankful for every day she has with her husbands and daughters. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Wow. Thank you for having me. Every time I hear that, it's like, is that person talking about me? Oh, it just brings it all back. But you work, it is me.
Absolutely, Julie.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being on the show today. Now, Kez has lots of things to talk to you about, so I'm going to hand over to her and listen on in the background. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Toni.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Kez. How are you?
I'm really well. Beautiful weather over here in Perth, just gorgeous. But first of all, much kudos to you with your journey. You've had a very, very big one, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I sure have. Yeah, I sure have.
And I know what you mean when you talk about flashbacks. So I think we've all had, women of a certain age have all had certain health setbacks, and it all, even with the COVID vaccine brought flashbacks to me of polio days and stuff like that. And so, yeah, you will have those certain times that happen to you, and they're not pleasant, are they?
No, they're not. And
No.
yeah, I've still got my scar from my polio vaccine. Now that you mentioned that, but yeah, it's tough reconciling that situation. But
Yeah.
I'm growing and evolving, and I'm getting there, and I'm finding reasons why. And so, yeah.
Patient 71, what a fabulous title. Loved it.
Yes. Yes.
And that was your title. How long were you in treatment?
So all up, probably 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I continued my treatment when I got back, which is all sort of part of the story, getting over there and then convincing the drug company to let me come back home to my family.
Wow. It just seems unbelievable to me that you have to convince someone to help you get better. It just should be well, there you go. Get better. You have to convince someone.
No, and that's not only me, actually. Now that I mentor patients, I hear it all the time, but I had to go on chemotherapy, get your affairs in order, but we'll give you this to give you a little bit of, extra time. And that wasn't going to cure me, and I knew it. And as the months were passing, my husband and I went to our oncologist, and, I didn't want to ask the question, but I had to, because it actually sort of did hold everything for a while. It sort of worked for a while, the chemotherapy. And I said to my oncologist, so how long's this going to work for? Like, when you go all tight. And he's like, oh, I think it was like October in 2012. And he said, I'll put it this way, it won't be working in March. And just matter-of-factly like that. And I kind of, put my head down, I remember staring at the floor, and my husband said, is there anything else? Is there, trials? Is there anything? And he said, oh, yeah, there's some trials overseas and that they're doing at the moment. They just started sort of first out of the rats type trial. And my husband said, well, can you refer us? Can we? And he said, no, I can't. You have to do that for yourself.
Oh my goodness, your heart must have sunk. That's terrible.
Yeah. So how does little old me think he can't do it, but somehow I can? But I'd made a promise to my daughters. They were just absolutely distraught the day I got home from hospital. And what was just heartbreaking is all the way home from the hospital, I was rehearsing, how I was going to tell them, you're probably going to lose your mother. And when I told them, they were just so distraught. As Toni said earlier, I just said, I'll fix it, I promise. And to my knowledge and research, no one had ever survived that diagnosis at all.
Wow. So going back to the very beginning, what alerted you to that? In the book it says you had a seizure, but what alerted you? Was it the seizure that alerted you that there was something dreadfully wrong?
Absolutely. I just turned 50, and what was interesting about that was that I didn't want to turn 50, so I did my daughter made up invitations, Julie's 4010th party.
I love it.
And I kind of figured I could be 4010, 4011 and just never get out of my 40s, you know. I thought I was very clever.
Yep.
I was really fit and healthy, training for a over 45 state level touch football tournament that was a few weeks away. There was no signs. There was nothing. I was literally driving to work that morning practicing gratitude, you know, which is something I didn't do a lot. I do now, believe you me. But I didn't do a lot then. I just distinctly remember I was driving along thinking it was a beautiful winter's day, the sun was shining. I was thanking the universe for my world and my kids, and even my husband got a mention. I mean, you know, it was it was a particularly good day. And then I went to work, went out for lunch down by the Opera House in Sydney. I mean, really just loving life. It was just so good. Walked back to work, walked into the office. One of my colleagues asked me what I had for lunch, and I couldn't answer. And the feeling in my head in those, they were seconds, and I just knew I was in a world of trouble. And and all I remember is he said, go and sit over there, like in the corner in the foyer. And that was it. I was gone. And I woke up, my head was down, and just felt really, really sick. And then I just heard my name being called out again and again and again. And it was paramedics trying to bring me around. So that was the first sign of it. And it's
then
like,
the big
what
journey.
the hell? And then rushed off to emergency. You know, next minute my husband turns up and he's like, oh, look, everything's going to be all right. You've just been, you know, celebrating your birthday. And I just knew that wasn't the case. But so I had initial scans and they said, yep, you have got a brain tumor. And okay, and we want to keep you here, and we're going to do, full body scans. And so for 24 hours, I was waiting. Obviously, you can't sleep, and just thinking, I hope this is just, you know, something simple, and you know, a benign tumor that they can remove. And distinctly remember Kez in the bed, in the hospital bed. My husband had come back to be with me, and you know, he was going back to the kids, back to me, back to the kids, and I saw the doctor coming, and it was like, you know how you watch the slow motion and the steps, and he had two interns either side of him, and instinctively I knew he's teaching these people how to break bad news to patients. It's just, I just knew. And he came up to the bottom of the bed and he said, Julie, you have tumours, you have a brain tumour, you have tumours in your liver, both lungs, pancreas, lymph nodes. You have, you know, stage 4 metastatic cancer. You know, it's not good. He didn't need to say it's not good. I actually knew that is not a good result.
Well, that news you would suppose,
Yeah. And
oh my God.
I know. So
and you didn't have a clue. You had no illness or nothing.
Nothing. I know. So that is really scary, really scary. Yeah. And then the doctor tried to say, you know, we need to give you some scripts, and I jumped out of bed. I had the hospital gown on, and I just started running, and my husband's picked up my bag and ran after me, and I just went, and I got in the lift and I went down, and I'm like, I didn't even know where the car was. I'm like, where's the car? And you just can't imagine the shock. You're okay one day, the next day you're dying. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it hasn't happened to me, but it's happened to a very close family friend, and I would say that their reaction was the same. It was the fear that made them move. They just took off, and,
Yep.
and I couldn't, I couldn't. I don't know. I think we're all just so different when we react to that sort of news. You ran for your life, literally
Yeah.
ran for your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ran for the hills. Yeah, running
So
for my life.
when did they tell you that you only had the 4 months to live?
So obviously they knew it was cancer, but they didn't know what type of cancer it was.
Yeah.
So when you go through this, anyone who's been through this journey will totally relate. It's just like this waiting game and these steps. And, you go home for a week. Oh, we'll give you a biopsy to see what cancer it is. And then we'll wait for the results. And then you go and see your oncologist. And I remember walking in and I did have the biopsy, went over to, so it turned out it was melanoma, and I knew that wasn't a good thing. That was one of the ones I didn't want to have. And then our local oncologist has kind of given us a little bit of false hope and told us that, they've got a pill now that, it's working quite well. And then anyway, to cut a long story short, that didn't apply to me. So it was just false hope. So we went over and we saw the professor, melanoma professor, and she walked in the door and I'm waiting for her to prescribe this pill that, I look back now and I think, how naive were you really? But at the time you want to believe anything,
Yeah.
And she came in and sat down and she said, you've got stage 4 metastatic melanoma. There's nothing, we can't help you. There's nothing we can do. Well, she didn't say there's nothing we can do because there was a chemotherapy that had 10% chance of giving you a few months more. And with that, I got up and she had a basin in the corner. It's a really old hospital, like the old-fashioned basin.
Yeah. And
I walked over to the corner, into the basin, and I just started dry retching. And all I could say was, my babies.
Yeah.
Because I promised them I was going to fix it. Then I get told there's no fixing this.
Oh, Julie.
I know. And it's still, as you can see, the emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at not being in no one, unless they're sitting in your shoes, no one can really understand, what it actually feels like. We've all had bad news, whether it be about us or our family, but no one, I've never been told it's life-threatening. So really, I'm watching your emotion, and it must have been incredibly hard. It must have been. So when you wrote your story, when you wrote it again, did it bring back the fear?
It brought back the fear, but it was more of like, what do you think you're doing, Julie? You've never written anything in your life and you're writing a book. What was interesting about the journey is the fear of dying. Just, everything else pales into insignificance. So when I was going through it, I remember driving to the hospital to get my brain tumour removed. That was the first step. And I was saying to Mrs. Universe, if you get me out of this one, I'm gonna, I'll do all those things I was always going to do.
But you're making bargains.
Yeah, I was making bargains. I was saying I'm going to learn that musical instrument. I was promising I'll learn that musical instrument. I'll write that book. Something inside of me always thought I might write a book and create, which is quite unbelievable because I didn't ever know what I was going to write about.
Yeah.
And hey, I got something to write about. So to answer your question, it did bring everything back, and I cried a lot of tears.
Very healing.
But very healing and cathartic as well.
Yeah.
It was such an amazing journey writing that book because it just flowed, like it just flowed. And I remember saying to myself, I'm at chapter 20 and I haven't even got to Portland yet. You know, but the story had to be told exactly as it was told.
Yeah.
And so I had to just put aside that, you know, I wasn't a trained writer, or I wasn't even, you know, my brother reminded me I wasn't even good at English. You know, how are you going to write this book? Thanks, bro. But that made me even more determined, you know. I'll show you.
Yeah, it seems to put that switch on. Give it a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just said to myself, well, hey, you can tell a story.
Yep,
you can tell a story.
Everyone's a storyteller.
That's it. And I had a story to tell, and I told it. I didn't try to overthink it or try to be a literary genius. I just told the story. And as it turns out, people really resonate with that because it's easy to read. And I just wanted people to go, hey, this is my story. It's just you and me here. I'm going to take you on this ride, you know?
Yeah.
And
when you were writing the book, did you know that you would be actually helping other women write their story as well? Did you have that in mind?
What I had in mind is for people to, like really dig into the fact that we're a lot more than we think we are in so many ways.
Yeah.
And to really just really bring out the best in themselves. Don't put things off. You know, that was the main message. It's like, I thought I had all the time in the world to write a book and learn an instrument and do all these wonderful things I wanted to do. And then the rug got absolutely pulled out from under me. So I really did want to send that message to people. Yes, it was for patients. It was for people under a diagnosis, but it was also for everyone to just live your life to the fullest. Come on, like, you can do it. Don't let the fear monsters stop you. And that's what it is. And I've had the most amazing messages, a lot from patients, but a lot from just, you know, other people. Like one young girl was in bed, you know, with depression, and she sent me a message and said, I read your story and I got up and I enrolled in university, and she hasn't looked back. And someone else had never been on a plane, never flown, because they had a fear of flying. And they sent me a message saying they booked their first flight and they were getting on a plane. Like, so it's just been the most wonderful, rewarding thing that I have helped people do that. And it made sense out of why I went through such a crazy ordeal.
You've also mentioned that you had different personalities come out when you were writing the book. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it was more of the different personalities going through the journey, because it was too hard to cope with just in one mind, if that makes sense.
Yes,
and I'm a Gemini, so there's already two of me. So I just kind of added another one, but it was like I had what I call in the book is like the mean monster. We've all got them, right?
Yep.
And it was like, ding, 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 ding. How are you going to survive this? No one else has, you know. And then when it got to me taking that leap, because I went off the chemotherapy and leap of faith to go to America, what are you doing? You're going somewhere and you might die there. You know, you'll be over there dead and your children will be over here. What are you doing?
Oh.
You know, I mean, seriously, that's how. And I would cry.
Yes.
And then as time went on, I got kind of a little bit of a wake up to the mean monster that was just didn't know the difference between me trying to save my life, and it was just trying to keep me safe in my comfort zone, really. And I went, and I was a wake up to that. So then I'd say, thank you, but I need to do this. It's like, it's a short-term pain for hopefully a long-term gain. If I don't go, there's no way I'm going to survive. If I do go, I've got a chance of surviving. And there was no long-term data either. They were just having some good results. And then the other personality, and then I had like a pragmatic
Really?
monster. Yeah, like that would just sort of say, so they're not all bad monsters. If you look at like Monsters Inc., for instance, there's some nice ones, and,
Yeah, there's always nice ones.
Yeah, and the pragmatic one, and how are you going to make this work financially, and your husband's business and all that sort of stuff. So I sort of had to, get centered and navigate that. And then, of course, my nice cheer squad monster just going, keep going, you can do this, keep going. The mean one would say, no one else has survived. The nice one would say, there's got to be a first. It was it was like a big dance going on.
Yeah. You sort of want to stop and say, hang on, one at a time, please.
Yes, shush. It was absolutely like that, and it was hard to get any peace, really hard.
Yes.
But I did get into yoga and meditation.
Oh, that's great. So it also deals, the book you've written, it deals with the sensitive topics you wrote about with the multiple personalities, but also you said something in the book about the power of a promise. Explain that to me.
Yeah, when I promised my girls, I'll fix this, I promise.
Now you have 2 girls.
I have 2 girls, two girls. They're not teenagers anymore, but they were at the time. I was brought up to keep my promises, and I think that's kind of a little bit lost these days, the old
I think so too. Yeah.
But when I made that promise, I said to myself, you have to do everything you possibly can to keep that promise, and I did know there was a chance that I wouldn't make it.
Yeah.
But I wanted my girls to know I did everything I possibly could to keep that promise.
Yeah.
And it's also become something that I talk about today, because then I promised I'd write the book. Then I promised I'd sing in a band. I've done all those things. I've kept all my promises. I've got more. But I just keep, as soon as I make that promise, and I don't make them lightly, but if I make them to myself or others, I'm going to keep them.
Good for you.
And I've actually done some research on this, interestingly, and I think Harvard Medical School did some research, and 98% of people who made a promise kept their promise. 30% of people who made goals, only 30% of people who made a goal kept it. So, so that's interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I think people's goals have become a little bit blah blah.
I think I was brought up in the same age. A promise is a promise, and my folks would always say a promise is a promise. And the dictionary and promise means word of honor. So it's I agree. I don't think today's generation realizes the enormity or the power of a promise. Because once you've made that definition, I promise you that I will do whatever you're going to do, I think it has almost a power to it.
Yes, and we have to make that power with promises we make to ourselves as well.
That's right. Yeah. You've also said about the when the surgeon told you to experience joy as it would help the cells in your body heal. Were you in the right place to hear that at that time?
Oh my goodness, can you imagine? It was a medical biologist, and he had said to me that melanoma cells are pretty much the worst in terms of them reproducing and taking over your body, and he's giving me all this, information. And he, is a bit of a natural healer, so he's giving me herbs and all sorts of things. And as we were leaving, my husband and I, he said, one more thing, Julie, you have to experience joy and happiness. Your body will respond. Your cells will respond. They'll know you want to heal. They'll really help you on this journey. So I'm like looking at him as if he had 3 heads.
I love
You're telling me, I seriously wanted to, that I have to experiencing joy when I've been told that my children aren't going to have a mother in a few months. My husband's not going to have a wife, a family's shattered. And he just said, I cannot stress that enough. I cannot emphasize that enough. So I had to make myself do it. So I would go and run and sing songs and, put my earphones in, and I had a chant that I would, a mantra that I would chant all the time. And I would just see my family and just be joyful. If I wanted to have a drink, I'd have a drink. I'd just dance. And I managed to do it. Don't ask me how, but I did. And every possible time. Look, don't get me wrong, because there was some low times, and I remember, I was in the car with my husband one day, and we were driving along, that poor man, and I just screamed, I don't want to die, it's and he's like, you're not going to die, and he was crazy, because he kept, every time I'd get a good result, he'd go, never in doubt, Dale, never in doubt.
Oh, nice.
And, I'm sure he was, but he never ever let on. But I just managed this joyfulness, and it, it stands me in good stead today, with what we're going through. The isolation I was in Portland. There were times when I was completely on my own over there in a very, very hard situation, not knowing whether I was ever going to come home. But I had to still be joyful, when I could. So
just practice gratitude. I mean, that is my way of being joyful. Apart from singing and dancing, gratitude is my way of being joyful. It's getting out there and just putting your feet on the grass, being able to do that.
Nature, love it.
Yeah. So you also say that you also wrote, and I love this about your writing, fear is an illusion. Explain that to our listeners.
Yeah, fear is an illusion and danger is real. But our minds, don't really know the difference.
Yeah.
When you learn the difference, for instance, so I'll use the example of today, right now.
Yeah.
Every time you go and put yourself out there and you're going to be on camera or do a podcast or do an interview, but the mind starts, oh, what if you forget what you're going to say? What if nobody likes what you're saying? What if, and that's just an illusion. It's not real. It's, it's catastrophizing.
Yes,
And if the mind doesn't know the outcome, it panics and starts sending
that's right.
things to you. Danger is, don't walk in front of that bus, because it's actually going to knock you over and you're probably going to die. Okay, that's rational. That's danger.
Yeah.
It's just learning to differentiate the two, and just not letting that fear stop you from being the best you, and getting stuck in a personality that you think is you, because it's been made up when you were 13.
Yes, I agree.
5 to 7, and the amount of people that have said to me, oh my God, I could never write a book. That's what I used to think. Oh my God, I could never do what you do and get up and speak in front of people. Yes, you could.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, it's just you'd be a little bit fearful, but yes, you actually can.
Yeah. So, there's a book inside everybody.
Oh, of course, and people have all got a message and a story to tell, and I think I feel so honoured that out of this I have got some messages and story to tell, and people to inspire and even transform, and it's really taken my life into another direction.
And you can't help but stop and think that maybe this road was meant to be. You can't, I often, I know it sounds quite cruel, but I often think to myself, why am I doing this? Doing my job, interviewing people about their health issues, about their books. Why do I do this? And there's just no answers. It's just that I get great pleasure and out of interviewing people and seeing their story and encouraging them to write their books. And the same way that you get the pleasure that you've written the book and that you are helping people have the mental attitude of survival.
Yes. Yeah, I just love it. And my recent launch, so I launched in Australia 4 years ago.
Wow.
And that's the other, my passionate thing too, is I would never have done that. I wouldn't have written the book. I would have taken it, I wouldn't have done it, I don't think. And now I find out that I'm capable of being a best-selling author.
Yeah.
So how many of us have these hidden talents?
That's right.
Just waiting to emerge. And I think we all get little niggles, and I got them even before anything
we all
happened.
do.
Yeah, even before anything happened to me. Oh, Julie, there's more for you to do. You shouldn't. There's more. And then boom, this happens. And so yeah, Kez, I'm grateful now. I wasn't at the time, at all. But I am.
Well, no.
No. But I am grateful, and I'm 9 years down the road now.
Oh, fabulous! Yeah. That's amazing. 9 years without the fear. Amazing.
Yeah. And I don't have fear around that. I don't have fear of recurrence, or I've just decided that I'm not going to have that fear. I'm not going to live my life in fear. So
So how do you channel the confidence you have in life now? How do you channel that to people that come to you?
I'm just a firm believer. I mean, it's not easy. Like, I'm not God, so people come to me with a diagnosis or whatever. I just like to calm them down and say, there is always hope. There is always hope. There is so much hope out there in the cancer world at the moment. Little bit sad because COVID's taken the shine off, research and all that at the moment. But
they are using some cancer medications to help with COVID now.
Yeah, I heard a whisper of that. Yeah, so I just like to stand beside them and just say, look, that they can see what happened to me and where I am now, and it just gives them that inspiration. And I can't prove that my mindset helped me stay alive, but I firmly believe that it played a big role.
Of course.
Yeah, because I only had months to live. Yeah. I arrived in Portland 9 months after my diagnosis, and I was still fit and healthy. I'd been through chemotherapy, lost my hair, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
But I made sure that my mind just kept me strong, so I could actually go there and have a chance of surviving. Had I gotten sick or prior, they wouldn't have taken me. I mean, it took me 3 months to beg and plead to get into that clinical trial.
To me, that's shocking, to have to beg and plead that your life is going to be saved, or there's a potential to have to beg. That's shocking. It must have made you feel terrible.
Well, it did, and I just thought, just because I'm not American, it doesn't mean I don't deserve. And look,
you don't count.
Once it's bureaucracy, and the drug company had said you can trial 70 patients. The hospital really had to follow that protocol, but in the end, they didn't. They bucked the system for me, and that my relationship with the hospital and the drug company is amazing, and I do work for both of them.
Nice.
Charity work, and I inspire the team at the drug company, and I help out Providence Cancer Centre, whenever I can as well. So so right through this writing journey, particularly the writing journey, what were the key points
that you would like to tick off that you've actually learnt?
From writing?
Yes.
From writing.
Writing your story.
Just keeping it sequential, I guess. And if you've got, for me, that kind of just flowed and it was quite easy. I would say also not to overthink things. And I think people who write always got to remember there are editors.
Yes.
That, you know.
I love my editor.
Yeah, we'll help you with your spelling. And, you know, I was never the best speller, but I blame my brain tumour. I used to be able to spell, but after I had that tumour, no. But no.
Who cares? You've got an editor. Who cares?
Yeah, that's it. And just I just say do it, and don't overthink that. What's it going to happen when it gets out there? Are people going to like it or not? Just write the book. Write the book. Worry about if people are going to like it or not later. Yeah. And let me tell you some of the comments. And this is another resilience thing. I'll tell you this little story because it's funny. So my book's been out for about a month. I really wasn't looking on. This is 4 years ago. I wasn't looking online at anything much, and then was getting lots of great messages, and I was, you know, a bit puffed up, thinking, pretty good at this, you know.
Yeah.
And then one night I was Googling, and boom, there's this review from someone called the Cozy Dragon, who thought they were getting a science fiction novel, Patient 71. And of course it was far from that. So they you know, they absolutely, you know, slammed it, and I'm like, oh. And what's interesting is for like maybe 12 hours I bought into that negative message. And then I thought to myself, Julie, are you going to listen to the 100 people that laughed and cried and resonated and learnt things? Or are you going to listen to somebody that hides behind a pseudo name and, you know? And
that's right.
That was a really big learning curve for me as well. So it's, you know, not everyone's going to like what you do, Kez, and you just have to accept that.
Oh, yeah, you do, big time. I remember my best-selling book launch, and it was like, I was quite nervous, and I've never really been that nervous before. But it was like my publisher said to me, not everybody's going to like you, but most people do like what, you know, because I write fiction. So it was like, what do I do when someone says, I don't like your work and I think your work is rubbish? And I've had that said, and it takes it, like whips the stool out from under your feet, because you're standing up there thinking, woohoo, I've got a bestseller. And, you know, the books were flying off the bookshelf, and all of a sudden someone drags that stool out and you land on your bum. And it's like, oh, this is real life, because not everybody's going to like you, and that's part of life.
It is part of life. I think the stats are that, you know, 10% of people, 10% of people listening now aren't going to like me or what I've done. But another really good thing that I learned years ago, that, you know, if you divide the world into 33%, 30% be like blah, blah, what you do, 30% what you do, and then 3% need you, and I've got to give, and always just that.
Yeah, you've actually frozen on the screen, Julie. That's better. You're still frozen.
Is that better?
It's all right. No, you're flicking on and off. Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right. I'll just check we're all good. So with the experimental drug, it was a success with you.
Yes.
And have you heard anything? I mean, you say that you work with the drug company that was producing this drug. Is it available in Australia yet?
Yes. So I was supposed to stay for 2 years, and I kind of signed up for that. but I always knew that I didn't, you know, if it was working, I didn't want to stay for 2 years. I wanted to come home to my kids. So I set about a campaign, or my husband and I, about coming home. And eventually the drug company allowed me to come home, and I got the drug here on compassionate grounds, and now it is readily available here for melanoma patients, and they're also trialling it on other cancers as well, and it's having some really great success. Not everybody. Cancer's a funny thing, and it's very you're finding out now it's very kind of unique to individuals, and
that's right.
And so they're doing a lot of work with that as well.
So it's not only the book that you've created. Look what else you've done. That's an amazing feat that you've actually allowed the road to be opened up to bring the drug into Australia.
Yeah. You know, I'd like to think it was going to come here anyway, because really it was saving people. But yeah, you know, I could have given it a little push. I hope so.
Well, obviously you did so. So well done. All the more kudos to you. So when you've also wrote that you had to be part of a team. So what did that consist of?
Part of a team in the trial.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously there were 70 other patients.
Yes.
I was part of the team, but to be honest with you, I more worked with the hospital to try and raise money and funds and stuff. I was a little bit tunnel focused, really, when I was in treatment. Like, there were people all around me, and a lot of them looked really sick, and I tried not to concentrate on them, if that makes sense. But when I talk about the team, what I mean is, when I was begging and pleading to get over there, seriously, Kez, I was saying to this clinical trials nurse, you know, get me over there, and whenever you want to come to Australia, you can come and stay at our place, and my husband will teach you how to surf. I mean, desperate times were leading to desperate measures. So
I've got a caravan out the back.
Yeah, gosh, come and stay for free. Oh, they must have thought, who is this crazy lady? I think I wrote in the book when I got there, and my chair said, it said, reserved for research. There's a big sticker. I think I wrote in that book, I was just glad it didn't say reserved for that serial pest from Australia that wouldn't leave. Because I just would, you know, I had a bee in my bonnet and I wasn't going to give up. But one of the promises I made to them was, I will help you fundraise, and I did, and I helped them fundraise to get new guest housing. I think they made a couple of $100,000, and yeah. So while I was over there, I was getting filmed and standing up in meetings and trying to keep my composure, and because the accommodation I had to stay in wasn't very nice at all.
Okay.
And so they wanted to have better accommodations.
Yeah, I suppose for health reasons.
Lovely
also.
ladies.
Yes, Toni, have you got something to say, Toni?
I was just going to say, lovely ladies, I have been listening to this whole conversation, and Julie, what a powerful story of healing and an amazing journey. I thought I'd just quickly share in the last 5 minutes of the show. The reason I've been quiet today is because on Monday we buried a very dear friend of mine from stage 4 melanoma, and so the story was a little bit close to home today. And I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful that Kez could do that, because it's powerful stories like yours, Julie, that we need to hear. And whilst my friend was completely positive to the very end, the end was rather unexpected and so rapid that it caught us all unawares. And I knew that we were talking to you today, and I knew that it was a powerful conversation to have and an important one to have, and to show a positive of something that is generally a death sentence. Melanoma is insidious, and the description that you described around the way that it invades cells, it absolutely is invasive. As a nurse, I remember operating on people, and you could actually see the nodules within the cell, and they looked like cancer. It's an evil cancer of all of them that are available. So to know that you are responsible for living this healthy, amazing life, and coming on the show and being vulnerable enough to tell us about your story, Julie, both Kez and I are incredibly grateful that you've shared with us, and we'd really like to encourage people to connect with Julie. Number one, to buy Julie's book. Number two, and if you need a powerful inspiration speaker for an event across the world, just connect with Julie. On the live chat, you'll find all the connections to Julie, her website, her email, and where you can get the book. And Julie, just thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being gracious to allow me to step aside, Kez, and allow Kez to take the show. Julie, just quickly, how old are the girls now?
My girls are 29, and the little one, I call her the little one, she's just about to turn 26. And Toni, they're both very strong, capable women, and
absolutely,
they have come out of this amazing. Morgan, my eldest daughter, owns a dance school with 450 students. And and just going amazingly. And my little girl Remy, who was she was quite anxious around my diagnosis, and she developed a lot of anxiety, and been through a bit of hell with that. But now she's turned it around, and she's a CrossFit champion.
Oh, wow.
And she that really just helps to keep her mind and anxiety at bay, and her mind strong. And they, they could have gone either way. We've had a bit of tragedy in our family, and I'm so proud of them.
And your husband as well?
Yes, he's gorgeous. Yeah, he's well. I'm not going to lie, it hasn't been an easy road. We lost our home.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
And, that's another funny thing about the book. We lost our home and we had to sell it, and that was awful. And we had to rent a property, and we moved across the road, and it was just heartbreaking. My home was across the road and down the street. But out the back of this home was a little cabin, and that's where I wrote the book. So there was a window and a beautiful greenery outside.
Yes.
So I even managed to find joy in that.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that it's all meant to be on that road. You were on the right road at the right time. Yeah.
Yes.
I know. And just being able to stay alive to get to Portland. I had a brain tumour removed. Most melanoma patients, they don't just get one brain tumour, they get 16 or 17.
Yeah.
Multiple.
I got one, and it got removed, and it stayed away until I got to Portland. Like, had I got there and had a scan and there was anything on my brain, they would have sent me back home.
Oh, wow.
Now they know it works on the brain, but they didn't then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I would have got sent home when it would have worked anyway. If it's going to work on you, immunotherapy, it's going to work. It should work for you.
Julie, you've got an amazing story. You really do have an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thank you both so much. I've enjoyed every minute of it. Thank you. And Toni, I'm thinking about
lovely
you.
Lovely ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Funerals are just tough, and he fought so hard, and it was just so quick at the end that it took our breaths away. Thank you so much, Kez, for stepping in for me today. Julie, thank you for sharing so vulnerably and openly about your beautiful story. That's our lot for this week, audience. This is Radio Toni. I'm your host, Toni Lontons, my co-host, Kez Wickham St. George, and the beautiful Julie Randall, Patient 21. Jump on and buy that book.
71.
Read about Julie's story. 71, yes. What did I say?
21.
What did I say?
21.
Oh,
that's okay.
Well, see, that's your age. That's your age.
Oh, you're too sweet. I'm hanging on to my 50s. I'm 59.
Oh my goodness. Wonderful.
No, I love every birthday now.
Absolutely. Wonderful audience. That we are completely out of time today. We must go. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kez. We will see you all next week for another episode of Conversation.
Thank you. Bye, Kez.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.